wanted to study myself, right? I wanted to study us, because it's usually white people studying us with no context of who we are, being really confused about certain things and lacking a certain level of nuance. I wrote a book about it, and it was called Beyond Grit and Resilience. And so basically, what I looked at my story, but I looked at other stories across the country of people that fit the same profile in different states and cities, and we have a lot in common. And what I learned is that we're all a very, very resilient group of folks. And we're able to take that beating over and over, but the body's not meant to do that. There's this thing called racial weathering, and what I had coined when I did my dissertation, it was the Black Achievement Trauma Tax. So what we found was, even those black men and women that went on and busted through to actually get the highest level of academic attainment, the best jobs or whatever, we were so beat down by the distance there that we arrived at this place and we arrived broken. So, you know, the things that come from that latent emotion, like latent emotional insecurities, right? Like, why we always so mad, right? You see, you know, I remember growing up here in North Oakland, and like you would see another black man, and it's like two dogs that have to show each other their teeth, right? Why is that like programmed into me, you know? The other thing was our inability to build deep and meaningful relationships. So when I'm trying to, you know, build a relationship, whether it's with a woman or with brothers or whatever the case is, there's still a wall there that stops me from doing it. And then finally, there's this deep insecurity with success in white spaces because we allow these folks to say what success looks like for us. Let me explain something. Let me be very clear about this. The people in power are never going to equip you with the tools to put them out of power. So that's never going to happen, right? So when these brothers are talking about when you go home and you take care of your family, when that brother over there is talking about he takes care of the body and people medically, like all these things are not separate, they emerge together. So my work, I work in education. I also sit on the UCSF Benioff board for hospitals. We oversee $4.5 billion in hospitals, right? And I do work in education and healthcare together because this stuff ain't separate. So when you ask me what I did to get through it, I survived, I struggled, I found a way to hustle. I made school my hustle, but I still did it in an unhealthy way, and I'm still showing up to you with all this success and a decent salary and living in a home that I own and like, you know, being able to teach and educate other black kids, and I'm sitting up here still broken. Yeah. And I think that once we acknowledge the brokenness in our community, then we can start to have conversations around how to move on, because kids should not have to be as resilient as I was. It's not normal. It's not normal for a 9-year-old to have to know what to do as a grown-ass man if he gets stopped by the police. It's not normal for how we like socialize our women to have to protect themselves. We live in a society where we used to, like, women can trust us to protect them, and that's not the case anymore. So I think that it's the resiliency and the trauma and all that stuff is in our DNA. But just because something got us here, don't mean it'll get us to the next level. How are we looking at making sure that we're not sick and that we're taking care of ourselves? And I'm saying this with a heavy heart. I do a lot of work in education reform. And there was a sister who's 34 years old. Her name is Rachel. And we do this work together. We go around and we talk about being able to choose and being able to demand better education, what that means, and what it feels like when a white person tells you that your schools is good enough, we don't want them black kids around us, but get mad when you make certain choices. That sister had a heart attack 3 days ago. She's 34 years old. She died yesterday. And the village is not well. Like, we are dying just so we can live and so other people can. So I don't want to drone on about it, right? There's some real navigation skills that I found when I was doing my research. So some of those things in that was, you know, parents, when you group up and make sure that y'all have built a village environment so y'all can really check in on your kids' education. You don't have to feel all that pressure, because this is the thing. I worked in education. I worked with some of the people one of the brothers that I worked with was here. Like, we would have a bunch of meetings to engage with folks, but black folks is working at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday. You know, like, my mother's job wasn't to be an educator. Her job was, I'm gonna get him fed, I'm gonna get him dressed, I'm gonna discipline him. Your job is to teach him. But when she can't show up, then that school, that system is passing judgment on her when they the ones that's getting paid to actually educate, right? So there are some like real tips that we can kind of give, but I just wanted us to start having that real conversation of where we are, like, if our well is poisoned, though, that means every sip of water that we take from that society is that we putting that poison back inside of us. So, you know, I mean, it's a bunch of folks and a bunch of really smart people on the panel, so I don't want to overtalk my answer, but I hope that that made sense, or at least begin to start a different type of conversation.
And I say that, as I said earlier, that I don't have time to waste. I've been cleaning soap and smoking crack for over 32 years now. When I was 18, doing my thing, and you know, we out there and whatever. But however, for those 3 years, it happened. So people ask me today, how did you get out of the social norm? The social norm for me was this. I said, God, if you real, you need to show me you real. And he's been showing me ever since. So now when we come before you today and we bring this panel, give them a hand again, please.
We speak together because we are experiencing the same thing that those people are writing for us. But to get back to my point, right? Me personally, right? I had to create my own therapy. I had to create my own therapy in order to heal myself, right? And so I created this initiative in which I wanted to, every year, create something and invite other people to join me in order to serve some of the children that are in need. That's how I created the venture that's called Negu's World. Mama B knows about it. She joined the venture not too long ago. What's the point of it? Every year, basically, we produce an event. I started this in New York, and we invite many other organizations around the world to produce an event on the same day, raise some proceeds, and that proceed goes towards a group of children that are in need in different parts of the world, right? So the year one, for example, we fundraise enough to buy 6,000 school lunches for children in Haiti, which is my country. On the second year, we built a soccer field for the children in Brazil. The year after that, we helped build a school in Tanzania. The year after that was another school in another African country to help them on their goal to self-sustainability. So why am I saying this? Really, for me, it wasn't about jumping in the bandwagon. I really wanted to do something that would really feel like I am contributing to the healing of our people. Mm-hmm. Right? And I wanted to make sure that I do it every year. I mean, I didn't care if I was going to do it by myself every year, right? I really didn't care. I was blessed enough to have people such as Mama B that really believed in the mission and just joined in, right? On the first year, it was 13 different countries that joined in. The year after that, it was 20 different countries. The year after that, even more, you know, and that thing, you know, keep growing every year. I really wanted to be a part of something that is me, right? And this is how I am writing the narrative for myself. This is how I decide not to be a part of the things that, you know, they feel that is for me, right? And just moving to Oakland not too long ago just really shows me how much diverse we are, right? I feel like everywhere I go, it's something different that I learn about myself, you know? Because, I mean, if I walk in this room, you don't know anything about where I come from, right? Unless I open my mouth and then you hear the accent, and then I'm evidently, yeah, you're not from here. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, you know, you look at me as part of the tribe, right? And I felt like because of that, because of them not knowing that, because of them and sometimes us not looking deeper than every other thing that we have to offer, sometimes it's what really is damaging the narrative for ourselves, right? So I really appreciate what you said, Sister. 100% I support that, and I want to talk to you some more.
When we go solutions.
And Dr. Tony, can you speak to the mental, what happens with mental health? I mean, trauma.
By the way, black psychologists in Navy side push back against the concept of PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. We always put out persistent traumatic stress disorder because it's been unrelenting, ongoing. You know, we haven't seen a day in this country without extreme level of trauma or potential for trauma. So we want to emphasize that there's a continual assault. We also want to emphasize that there are some things that, you know, healing for us is going to be about being African. You got to be African.
Be African.
Be African
Be
as much as we can.
Yes, sir.
Be African, because there's so much in this system that is anti-African. And there are some resiliency factors that have accounted for our being here and being able to thrive in spite of our conditions. And one of them is Nomo, right, spirit of the word, which is why back in the day when they were calling for the death knell of rap music, that it wouldn't last too long, we said, right. And, you know, now they got it in McDonald's commercials. So we've always been about the word and about the spirit of their word. Very, very important aspect of who we are. We have to continue. The issue of movement, you got to keep moving. Keep it moving, right? And when, you know, when I've been to the continent and I've taken a look at different celebrations, you know, my mom is there, she's 75 years old with, you know, the kids. They were 7 and 8. And everybody dancing together. So movement, we can't allow this system to make us feel embarrassed about any of it. Movement is profound. Movement is scientific. It's called mind-body coordination. Rhythm is something that just because we have a lot of it doesn't make it a bad thing. You feel me?
No, I do.
Yeah. Because, I mean, what happens with the notion of rhythm is that, you know, we just sort of think, well, we have rhythm, and, you know, a lot of people don't. Well, that means something. From our melanated system, our ability to coordinate, and there, you know, it's a multi-step level, right? Multi-level step to coordinate movement in a way that makes sense. Also, having a spiritual base. You know, spirit is important, you know, and, you know, not talking about religion, you know, and I've been in and out of, you know, cursing God and, you know, everybody else, you know. I didn't want to, you know, been in places where I didn't want to hear nothing about Jesus, didn't want to hear nothing about God. Don't come to me with that weak stuff, you know. Been there too. And have really had to dig to look at and cultivate spirits, you know, in me and in my life. So it didn't come easy for me. So when I say that spirit is an important aspect of what has allowed us to survive and kept us here, I don't say it easily because I'm not one of those people. Those people.
That's right.
Yeah, when I was coming up in LA, I didn't want to hear nothing the preachers had to say. Couldn't talk to them. But then there are also, you know, the rhythm of the drum and the use of drums, very important. Very important. And anywhere you go on the planet, you got black folks who are drumming, you know, who are, you know, putting out intricate rhythms, right? Very difficult rhythms, like it's, you know, toast in the morning, like it's nothing. Extremely helpful. And then also to, like, when you talked about walking down the street and the sister not acknowledging, feeling state. I mean, we the only people that, you know, we spread it all around, you know, you feel me? Yeah. I'm feeling some kind of way. You know, that's the youngsters say that to right all my feelings. Right. When lost my socks, right? Right. So, you know, I know we sound like OGs trying to talk again, but
we in our feelings though.
yeah.
Oh, we got a youngster up there too. We got a couple youngsters. See,
Yeah.
he can relate.
I'm just saying.
I'm in my feelings. As a black man, in my feelings. What does that mean, right?
Right.
That means I ain't never looked at it, so I have to go inside.
Yeah.
So these young brothers are talking about going inside their feelings where they never went before.
Yeah.
Because no one's taught them. Men haven't taught men they go into their feelings. It's been a sexual piece, it's been a braggadocious piece, but it ain't been about the love.
Yeah. Yeah. And self-love. Because if the youngsters are in feelings, we have to talk about emotional regulation, which brings us to stress. Brings us to stress and the impact of stress on the brain. Without going into details, it absolutely shrinks the brain. It absolutely impacts diseases like Alzheimer's disease, which, you know, hits the hippocampus first. It absolutely impacts the gut, and through the gut-brain axis will impact the brain. So we have to take it seriously. We have to take the level of stress that we breathe in. You know, what Parliament used to say, with the rhythm it takes to live through what we have to swim through, what we have to live through, we can dance underwater and not get wet. Psycho, alpha, yeah, anyway. That's what they used to say. Sister right here has her hand up in the yellow.
So it ain't so much, it's, how can I say it? When you only have those tools, that's what you deal with. If that word was replaced with king or queen, that's what we use. But that is I'm not going to say slavery term, it was one used to demean us. And we don't really know that history, unlike a lot of things we don't know the history of. So those young men of color are, one, using it, and someone's getting paid for it. That's the best of two worlds. So I hear you, but we may have to redefine it so that we understand where they're coming from. See, because that's an old man, that's the old man's thinking about what that word means. We need to understand what they think it means. And then we can either change it or not change it. Because it may be, you was a good nigga, you my nigga, man. I love you, my nigga. As opposed to, I don't like you niggas. You niggas ain't nothing. Just depends on the tone and who you talking to and what that means. Look, I use the word all the time. And some of the people I love and know, I ain't lying. I've known them that long, 20, 30 years. Really? No. It's okay. But again, it's how it's defined and how that's viewed. I'm sure those young brothers are using it, if it's not bravado, it is one of love. That's just how I feel.
I came to the United States, not speaking the word of English, and I was fighting to find my place in the United States. And the first thing that was made clear to me is that I was somebody's nigga. I'm saying this from a perspective that I don't accept it, right? And again, this is my own personal journey, right? When I fell upon, in 2007, I found the word Negus. I didn't discover it, it existed, right? In Negus, N-E-G-U-S, means king in the Ethiopian language. Why was it that important to me? It's because Ethiopia is the motherland of all black men and arguably the motherland of humanity, right? So to me, finding that word was the original language of my ancestors, right? So when I adopted the word nigger, because I decided, yeah, you know what? That's what my place is, and I will accept it, right? When I found the word negus, to me it was a calling for me to be something else, right? And then I started, of course, you know, going around telling people, hey, listen, you're not a nigger, you're a negus. That's the word of our ancestors. You know, that they changed the word, and you know what I'm saying? Now they try to tell us that we're something different, blah, blah, blah. It was exhausting, right? My own personal journey now is to let people know around me, nigger, that's not me. I I am not a nigga. That's not the way I see you. That's not the way I want you to see me. End of the conversation. Mind you, half of the people around me, they use that word all the time. My best friends, members of my family, they just know better not to call me that. Right? So there's no judgment, pointing fingers at this point. Right? It's all about the respect of the space that you have around you. I will never be your nigga. I'm done being somebody nigga. Right? I am a king. I'm a nigga. That's the way people see me from now on. Right? That's the way that I've adapted it, and everybody in my house knows better. So I am an educator myself. Right? Best believe to them it's just, it's just another word.
I mean, no, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think I'm that young. I'm 36, but thank you. Water, black, yeah. You look good, man.
Thank you for being there to share.
I listened to everybody's answers. I wasn't gonna answer because I know there was another lady that had a question. I mean, listen, I think it's contextual. I think that, like the brother was talking about, he comes from a different context of being born and living in Paris, which has a whole different context around that word, a lot of different things. The last time I was in Paris, they was kicking a whole bunch of black people out because it was right when Brexit happened. So it has a different context. I was just back in Chicago with some of my family, and I just got some property there, and I didn't know what I was doing. And my cousin came and was like, "Little nigga, I got you." And I felt so much love in that moment because I didn't know what I was doing, right? But it's a different context if it's somebody that I don't know that's calling me that, right? And it's the same way of what the language that you have in your home. So I get the point though, and I get the sentiment of what you're asking. Basically, what I hear you saying is, how can we move beyond if we continue to use words and language of hate instead of lifting each other up? And I think that in that context, when he told me that wasn't a language of hate in that moment. That was a language of love and language. The other thing that you had mentioned, and I wanted to say, I hate the term woke. I think it's overused. I think it don't have no meaning no more. And I think if you're 17 years old and you telling a bunch of people that lived a whole life that they not woke and you ain't experienced nothing yet, I just think that's backwards, right? I think some people need to take a nap. So for me, I don't judge. I just think that we all have fallen short. I think that if Martin Luther King lived in this day and time with social media, he would have got canceled before he could have had the March on Washington. I think they would have brought up Malcolm X's past every chance they got. So I look at things at a contextual level. But I definitely appreciate the question. I don't know if I fully answered it, and I don't know, but yeah. So
You all do. Okay.
If you ask me my story, like I can only tell the story that I got. I didn't see it as negative, but I hear what you're saying. But I grew up with two Dolphin parents, and I grew up in shelters, right? And but I see that journey as positive. I think that if you want to know real things that we can do, here's the solutions that I talked about. That's why my company is called Energy Converters. I see all that stuff that I went through as a blessing that got me here and put me in that position. But one of the things that all those people in that book did that was their family sought out quality education and looked a lot of different ways for different people. I think that parents and communities have to remain and retain that you are the experts over your child and assert that in schools. The other thing is all those kids had a strong self-identity of who they were. So they was going back home or going back to somebody's community and they was getting told they was beautiful, that somebody loved them. And so when those kids was all tempted and bad things were happening around them, they were able to stay on their square. And then the other thing is it was a proximity to success. They made sure that they saw other black people that were lawyers, doctors, that were handymen or whatever the case is. But just being in that type of environment and seeing things. So I appreciate your comment. I think on the mental health side of things, I think that we have to also acknowledge that being able to even have this conversation in the space that we're in now is a part of, it's a form of privilege, right? Like my grandmother wasn't in a space where she could have these talks about mental health. A mental health day wasn't a real thing for her, right? Like she couldn't kind of do that stuff. But I think that if we are blessed with the ability to kind of go and get that type of help, I think that we should. But I do want to acknowledge that like there are some people that are really struggling. And they trying to get their basic needs met. They trying to get those bills paid. They split the water bill and the heat bill, right? So, I think that if you are in that position, that you should definitely go do that. And I think we got to breathe life into our people. And I'll leave it there. But
remember is that these younger generations are traumatized.
Yeah.
They're very traumatized, and they have seen things that normally a child shouldn't see. You know, there's been damage and a lot of harm done to our communities, and our kids today are the results of the language that nobody wants to hear, the music that people want to, put down, or however you want to put that. But you know, there's a lot of resilience to what they made us. They made us this way. So you have to embrace your family, embrace your family, embrace your kids, teach them what they should and should not do, and how they should look, and how they should, teach them, like, I would say, your mom or your ancestors that, taught you, because we got out of hand. So
Stop looking for the other people to do it and do it in our own house. That's what we have in this table talk conversation about. We done got away from this. We done got away from just having a doggone conversation. We got the cell phones, we at dinner, and everybody on the cell phone. We ain't even talking to one another. Just the little simple things. All your stories, everybody's story counts. Everybody's story. And that's the other thing that we need to embrace with one another, is that your story matters to me. That's how we move out of this. We talked about love. We talked about sharing. All of that. When you do that, that helps somebody out of a mental state. My nephew is in jail right now. That boy had and you want to talk about mental health? Let me share with you trauma. Trauma brings on mental illness. My nephew he was straight A's in school. My sister passed with pancreas cancer at 34. Guess what happened to him? Him and his mother was like this. His mother left, died, gone. What happened to him? It snapped. The boy hasn't been the same. Trauma affects people in different ways. We need to go back and not sweep things under the rug that happened in our house, see what's going on in the family, and then we can move forward and heal. That boy had he's in jail right now. Right now. Facing probably life. Just that little thing. It wasn't little, it's maybe little in my eyes, but in his eyes it was big. So everybody's story, and I believe, like I said earlier, divine time, divine order, all of what we talked about today was supposed to be. And you may not get it right now. You may get it when you walk out of this door. Something may happen next week. Somebody said something tonight that's going to make a difference in your life. And that's what we're talking about tonight. But mental health comes from trauma. Trauma. Ma'am, trauma. We need to see what's going on, not only with these kids, but they got the face walking out of these doors. We need to talk to them every day, asking them, what affected you today? And have real conversations with these kids. That's what we got to do. We got to get back to being us. And I'm not a psychiatrist, but I do know that sometimes we all go cuckoo and cocoa puffs. And then somehow it comes back and the spirit brings us back. But however, everybody's story counts. It is